Imagine a world where every major conflict, from the thunder of cannons in ancient battlefields to the drone strikes of modern warfare, wasn't born from the clash of ideologies or the greed of nations, but from the calculated designs of a handful of shadowy dynasties. These aren't the kings or presidents whose names echo in history books. They're the forgotten bloodlines, the elite families who pull the strings from behind velvet curtains, engineering global wars not for victory, but for eternal power. Their wealth doesn't come from conquest. It flows from the rivers of blood spilled in battles they orchestrate, ensuring that chaos becomes their currency and control their legacy. This isn't a tale of random tyrants or fleeting empires. It's the disturbing truth of how 5 families across centuries built an unbreakable web of influence, turning humanity's greatest tragedies into their personal empires. And as you listen, you'll realize that the wars raging today aren't accidents of history. They're the system working exactly as these architects intended, binding us all in chains we can't even see. Let's journey back to the cobblestone streets of 16th century Frankfurt, where the seeds of this grand manipulation were first sown by the Rothschild family, the first of our forgotten bloodlines. Emerging from the Jewish ghetto known as the Judengasse, Mayer Amschel Rothschild began as a humble coin dealer, trading rare artifacts with princes and nobles. But Mayer was no ordinary merchant. He possessed a razor-sharp intellect for finance, recognizing that true power lay not in gold itself, but in the control of its flow. By the late 1700s, he had established a banking house that catered to the Hessian royalty, lending money for their mercenary armies during the American Revolutionary War. Here's where the genius and the darkness unfolds. Mayer dispatched his 5 sons to the financial capitals of Europe, London, Paris, Vienna, Frankfurt, and Naples, creating a network unmatched in speed and secrecy. They communicated via private couriers and encrypted messages, outpacing governments and rivals alike. When the Napoleonic Wars erupted in 1803, the Rothschilds didn't choose sides. They financed both. Nathan Rothschild in London backed the British coalition with millions in gold, smuggled across enemy lines, while his brothers in Paris and Vienna extended credit to Napoleon's empire. The family profited immensely from the interest on these loans, but their real innovation was in information warfare. Nathan famously received news of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo a full day before the British government, using a network of carrier pigeons and spies. He sold British bonds en masse, sparking a market panic that drove prices into the abyss, only to buy them back at rock bottom before the victory announcement sent values soaring. In that single maneuver, the Rothschilds amassed a fortune equivalent to billions today. But more importantly, they demonstrated how war could be a tool for market domination. Governments, desperate for funds to wage their campaigns, became indebted to the family, repaying not just principal but perpetual interest that funneled wealth upward. The Rothschilds didn't start the wars, but they engineered the financial mechanisms that made them inevitable and profitable, ensuring that every cannon fired echoed with the clink of their coins. By the mid-19th century, their influence had spread like wildfire. They funded the British Empire's expansion, the Austrian Habsburgs' intrigues, and even the early stirrings of industrialization that would fuel future conflicts. Yet, for all their visibility in high society, the family remained shrouded in mystery, their true power hidden in ledgers and whispers, setting the stage for the bloodlines that would follow in their footsteps. As the 19th century gave way to the industrial age, across the Atlantic, another dynasty rose from the ashes of opportunity, the Rockefeller family, whose oil empire would lubricate the machinery of global conflict and cement their place as the second architect in this eternal scheme. John D. Rockefeller, born in 1839 to a modest family in upstate New York, started as a bookkeeper but quickly grasped the transformative power of petroleum. By the 1870s, he had founded Standard Oil, a behemoth that monopolized refining and distribution through ruthless tactics, undercutting competitors, securing secret railroad rebates, and absorbing rivals until he controlled over 90% of America's oil production. But Rockefeller's vision extended far beyond mere commerce. He saw oil as the lifeblood of modern warfare, the fuel that would drive armies, navies, and eventually air forces into battle. During the American Civil War, his early investments in kerosene profited from the Union's demand for lighting and lubricants, but it was the dawn of the automobile and mechanized warfare that truly elevated the family. As tensions brewed in Europe leading to World War I, the Rockefellers positioned Standard Oil to supply both the Allies and the Central Powers indirectly, through neutral channels, ensuring that no matter who won, their refineries hummed with activity. John D's son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., took the reins and expanded into philanthropy. But this was no act of altruism, it was a veil for deeper influence. They funded eugenics research in the early 20th century, supporting programs that echoed the racial hierarchies fueling imperial wars, and established the Council on Foreign Relations in 1921, a think tank that shaped U.S. foreign policy toward interventionism. When World War II loomed, the Rockefellers, Standard Oil of New Jersey, later Exxon, struck deals with IG Farben, the German chemical giant tied to the Nazis, sharing patents for synthetic rubber and aviation fuel that powered the Luftwaffe's bombers. Even as American boys stormed Normandy, Rockefeller interests profited from the very technologies enabling the enemy. Post-war, the family helped orchestrate the creation of the United Nations, donating the land for its headquarters, not out of peace-loving idealism, but to embed their influence in the New World Order, where oil-rich Middle Eastern conflicts would become perpetual sources of wealth. The Rockefellers didn't ignite the powder kegs of war, but they engineered the supply chains that kept them burning, turning black gold into red rivers of profit and ensuring that global stability remained forever elusive, always one crisis away from their next windfall. Shifting our gaze to the gilded halls of Wall Street, we encounter the Morgan dynasty, the third bloodline whose banking prowess turned the chaos of war into a symphony of financial domination. J. Pierpont Morgan, born in 1837 into a family of financiers, inherited his father's international banking firm, but transformed it into a colossus that rivaled nations. Known for his piercing gaze and unyielding ambition, Morgan consolidated railroads, steel mills, and utilities, creating U.S. Steel in 1901 as the world's first billion-dollar corporation. But his true mastery lay in war finance. During the Spanish-American War of 1898, Morgan's syndicate floated bonds that funded the U.S. Navy's expansion, pocketing hefty commissions while positioning America as an imperial power. As Europe hurtled toward World War I, Morgan & Co. became the exclusive purchasing agent for the Allies, coordinating over $3 billion in loans equivalent to trillions. Today, from American investors to Britain and France, this wasn't mere lending, it was entanglement. Morgan knew that if the Allies defaulted, the U.S. economy would crumble, so he lobbied relentlessly for American entry into the war, whispering in the ears of presidents and policymakers. His firm profited from every shell casing, every uniform, every shipment across the Atlantic, but the innovation was in creating dependency. Governments borrowed not just money, but influence, with Morgan dictating terms that reshaped post-war Europe. When the 1907 financial panic struck, Morgan personally orchestrated a bailout, locking rival bankers in his library until they pledged funds, proving he could stabilize or destabilize the system at will. This led to the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, a central bank modeled on his vision, which ensured endless credit for future wars. His son, J.P. Morgan Jr., continued the legacy during World War II, financing Allied efforts while the family's holdings in General Electric and other firms supplied weapons and technology. The Morgans engineered wars by making them financially irresistible, weaving a web where debt became the ultimate weapon, binding nations in servitude and ensuring that peace was always temporary. A brief interlude before the next profitable storm. Venturing into the smoky factories of industrial might, the DuPont family emerges as the fourth architect, their chemical empire alchemizing destruction into dynastic wealth through the very tools of warfare. Founded in 1802 by Eleuthère Irénée Dupont, a French immigrant fleeing the Revolution, the company began as a gunpowder mill on the Brandywine River in Delaware, supplying explosives for America's early conflicts like the War of 1812. But it was the family's expansion into chemicals and munitions that forged their path to eternal power. During the American Civil War, DuPont provided over half the Union's gunpowder, amassing fortunes while brothers like Henry DuPont navigated political alliances to secure government contracts. By World War I, the family had diversified into dynamite, smokeless powder, and poison gases, becoming the largest supplier to the Allies, with profits soaring to 250 million billions in modern terms from a single war. Pierre S. DuPont, the visionary leader, invested war windfalls into acquiring General Motors in 1920, linking automotive innovation to military logistics. Yet, the darker threads weave through their collaborations. In the 1930s, DuPont's ties to IG Farben facilitated technology transfers that bolstered Nazi rearmament, including tetraethyl lead for aviation fuel. When World War II erupted, DuPont's nylon revolutionized parachutes and tires, while their plutonium production at Hanford site enabled the atomic bombs dropped on Japan, a grim pinnacle of profit from apocalypse. Post-war, the family influenced U.S. policy through lobbying, ensuring chemical weapons and agents like those used in Vietnam remained lucrative. The DuPonts didn't declare wars, but they engineered the means to wage them endlessly, turning science into slaughter and innovation into instruments of control, where every explosion echoed their unassailable dominance. Finally, as we approach the shadows of the 20th century and beyond, the Warburg family completes this pentacle of power, their banking intellect bridging old-world finance with modern geopolitical machinations. Descended from Venetian Jewish bankers who settled in Hamburg in the 16th century, the Warburgs rose through Warburg & Co., established in 1798, specializing in international trade and bonds. Paul Warburg, emigrating to America in 1902, married into the Loeb banking family and became a key architect of the Federal Reserve System, advocating for a central bank to manage crises and wars with unlimited liquidity. His brother Max Warburg remained in Germany, advising Kaiser Wilhelm II and financing the German war effort in World War I, while Paul in New York facilitated Allied loans through Kuhn, Loeb & Co. This dual allegiance wasn't betrayal, it was strategy, ensuring the family profited regardless of outcome. During the interwar period, the Warburgs influenced the Dawes and Young plans, restructuring German reparations to stabilize Europe, only to pave the way for Hitler's rise, with Max briefly serving on IG Farben's board before fleeing Nazi persecution. In exile, Felix Warburg's philanthropy masked deeper networks, funding Zionist causes that intertwined with Middle Eastern conflicts. Post-World War II, descendants like Sigmund Warburg pioneered Eurobonds in London, fueling Cold War economies and proxy wars in Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. The Warburgs engineered global wars by mastering the art of divided loyalties, creating financial instruments that made conflict self-sustaining, where every treaty signed was merely a prelude to the next engineered crisis. Now, as these threads converge, picture the intricate tapestry these 5 bloodlines have woven. The Rothschilds with their informational empires, the Rockefellers fueling the engines of destruction, the Morgans binding nations in debt, the DuPonts arming the arsenals, and the Warburgs orchestrating the financial symphonies. They didn't conspire in smoke-filled rooms across centuries, each built upon the foundations of the last, solving the puzzles of power in ways that benefited their kind. From the Napoleonic fields to the trenches of Verdun, from Pearl Harbor's flames to the deserts of Iraq, wars have been their forge, hammering humanity into submission. Today, their descendants and institutions, through asset managers like BlackRock, think tanks like the CFR and forums like Davos, perpetuate the cycle, Global debt from endless conflicts transfers wealth from the many to the few. Surveillance states born of wartime necessities track our every move, and resource wars over oil and rare earths ensure perpetual instability. This isn't coincidence, it's design. The forgotten bloodlines made war not a bug of history, but its feature, guaranteeing eternal power through eternal strife. And here's the chilling revelation. As long as we believe wars are inevitable clashes of nations, we remain blind to the puppeteers. But once you see the strings, you can't unsee them. If this awakens you to the hidden hands shaping our world, if it stirs a fire to question the narratives fed to us, then share this truth, delve deeper, and remember their power thrives in our ignorance. Break the cycle or become another pawn in their endless game.